The QY25KJ is a specially designed high-quality truck crane developed and manufactured by the Suzhou Heavy Machinery Company Limited. It has several patents granted by the Patent Office of China and passed the ISO 9001 Quality System Certification and the 3C Compulsory Certification. It has been designed with leading technical parameters and performance indicators to compete in the world market historically dominated by other companies. The QY25KJ is composed of the undercarriage, telescopic boom, auxiliary boom, cabin, rotating platform, counterweight, slewing mechanism, hoisting mechanism, telescoping mechanism, and luffing gear. Its undercarriage is equipped with a full-view cab and a fully covered walking platform. Its hydraulic system features advanced load sensing technologies and energy conservation. The hydraulic system is equipped with a pollution indicator and alarm device to provide a perfect safety system. Part 1. Operation. Operation of undercarriage. Starting the engine. Make sure that the handbrake lever is engaged and shift the gear change lever to the neutral position. Insert the ignition key and rotate clockwise to the third gear. Then switch on the power supply and depress the accelerator pedal to the appropriate position, and then turn the key to the fourth gear to start the engine. If the engine does not start within 5 seconds, turn the key back to the third gear position. Wait 15 seconds and then try to start the engine again. If you cannot start the engine after 3 consecutive tries, quit attempting to start the engine and begin troubleshooting. Check the oil pressure after starting the engine. When idling, the oil pressure should not be less than 0.35 MPa. Preheating the engine after starting. Notice, after starting the engine, its idle running time is not allowed to exceed 5 minutes, increasing its RPM gradually. Don't run the engine at full load until the water temperature rises up to 60 degrees Celsius above. Especially after low temperature starting, increase its RPM as slow as possible to achieve adequate lubrication of the engine. Engagement of the power takeoff gear. To engage the power takeoff gear, make sure that each manipulation, both upper and lower, is in the neutral position, with an air pressure more than 0.45 MPa. Depress the clutch pedal all the way, engage the power takeoff gear, then release the clutch pedal slowly. Notice, in winter, run the hydraulic pump for some time to warm up the hydraulic oil. Deploying the outrigger system. Note, before operation, make sure that the selected ground is solid. Otherwise, place some proper wooden blocks under the outriggers to avoid tilting. Horizontal outriggers. Unplug the pin locks, pulling the selector valve lever of each outrigger up to its horizontal position. And manipulate the handle of outrigger telescopic cylinder downward to stretch out the horizontal outriggers. When operating the upper cart, refer to the corresponding hoisting performance table. Operate the crane only when the horizontal outriggers are fully or half extended. Vertical outriggers. Pull the selector valve lever of each outrigger down to its vertical position. Control the lift cylinder handle downward and stretch out the vertical outriggers. Operate the vertical outriggers independently of various directions. Observe the leveling instrument to level the undercarriage. After leveling, make sure that each tire is off the ground and each outrigger plate keeps contacting with the ground. Front outriggers. When using the front outriggers, don't stretch out the front outriggers before extending the vertical outriggers and leveling the undercarriage. After the completion of setting up the outriggers, be sure to pull each selector level to its neutral position. At this moment, you can operate the upper cart. Retraction of outrigger system. Make sure that all parts of the upper cart are in the driving state before retracting the outriggers. Front outriggers. Note: retract the front outriggers before retraction of other outriggers when using the front outriggers. Follow the order of operations to avoid deformation to the frame forepart. Vertical outriggers. Pull the selector valve lever of each outrigger down to its vertical position. Adjust the lift cylinder handle upward to retract the vertical outriggers. Horizontal outriggers. Pull the selector valve lever of each outrigger up to its horizontal position. Adjust the lift cylinder handle upward to retract the horizontal outriggers, and then insert the pin locks. Engine misfiring and disengagement of power takeoff gear. Disengagement of power takeoff gear. Depress the clutch pedal all the way, then disengage the power takeoff gear and release the clutch pedal. Engine misfiring. Press the engine misfire switch until the engine cuts out. Turn the starting key to the power switch off position. Outrigger system throttle. The outrigger system throttle is connected with the outrigger lifting and telescoping cylinder handles. Move the handle placement to regulate the engine speed. When the handle is in the neutral position, the engine idles. Preparation before operation. To enhance the safe operation of your crane, take time to study its manual and prepare the following before operation. Make sure that the operator is specially trained and has the Special Operation Certificate. Make sure that the hydraulic system and electrical system work properly before hoisting operation. Make sure that the locking devices of the brake mechanism, luffing mechanism, and telescoping mechanism work properly, and there is no abnormal wear of the wire rope of the winch. Make sure that the electrical parts and safety devices work properly. Although the crane is equipped with a torque limiter and safety devices, before operation, the operator must fully understand the lifting load and the working environment to determine the optimum hoisting scheme based on the hoisting performance table. Follow the safety procedures when operating the crane. Operation of crane working mechanism. Starting the engine. Insert the ignition key and turn clockwise to gear 1 and switch on the power supply to energize the upper cart control system. Continue to turn the key to gear 2 and then start the engine. Engine misfiring. Turn the ignition key counterclockwise to gear 3 and shut off the engine 1 to 2 seconds later. After release, reset the switch to its power-off position. Upper cart throttle. Depress the upper cart throttle pedal to increase the engine speed and release it to decrease the engine speed. When the pedal is in its original position, the engine idles. Main hoisting mechanism. Manipulate the lift control lever of the main hook. Push the lever forward for descending the main hook and pull the lever backward for ascending it. The lifting speed of the hook depends on the displacement of the control lever and throttle. Auxiliary hoisting mechanism. Manipulate the lift control lever of the auxiliary hook. Push the lever forward for descending it and pull the lever backward for ascending it. Main luffing. Manipulate the control lever of the boom luffing. Push the lever forward for descending it and pull the lever backward for ascending it. Main boom telescoping. Manipulate the control lever of the telescopic boom. Push it forward for stretching out the second section, third section, and fourth section in phases, and pull it backward for retracting the second section, third section, and fourth section simultaneously. To avoid damage to the telescopic cylinder, no telescoping with a load is permitted. Slewing mechanism. Disconnect the locking device of the rotating platform before operating the slewing mechanism. Manipulate the control lever of the slewing mechanism and push the rotating platform forward for slewing right and pull the rotating platform backward for slewing left. When not using the front outriggers, the indicator lamp for the front area illuminates and an alarm sounds when rotating the platform to the front area. When using the front outriggers, be sure to press down the front outrigger switch to illuminate its indicator lamp before carrying out 360-degree slewing operation of the crane. In the case of overload, the overload indicator lamp of the front outrigger illuminates. After completion of hoisting operation, retract the boom fully and fix the hook to the fixing position on the frame. Make sure that the boom is on the boom bracket and the control lever and all control switches are back to their neutral positions. Switch off the power of the upper cart before operating the undercarriage. Operation of 2 or more cranes. Under normal circumstances, no operation of 2 or more cranes for simultaneous hoisting one heavy load is permitted. If necessary, be sure to keep the steel rope vertical and synchronize the lifting operation of each crane. Do not exceed 80% of each crane's rated load. No slewing is permitted. Otherwise, the crane can overturn or the boom can be broken, resulting in serious consequences. Installation and removal of auxiliary boom. Use the auxiliary boom only when the outriggers are fully or half extended. Installation of auxiliary boom. After full retraction of the main boom, put it at the rear side of the complete vehicle. Fold the boom end sleeve to the front. Spread the extended bracket. Remove the connecting pin axis of the auxiliary boom with the main boom. Take the front pin axis as the rotating center to align the connecting hole of the auxiliary boom to the pinhole of the main boom and insert the pin axis. Remove the front pin axis and rotate the auxiliary boom to plug the other 2 pins. Installation of auxiliary hook. Remove 4 sections of the boom head rope and pull the auxiliary rope through the guide sheave on the auxiliary boom and the sheave on the auxiliary boom head. Switch on the power supply of the auxiliary height limit switch and connect the electrical connector of the auxiliary boom with the connection of the main boom head, and then install the heavy hammer of the auxiliary boom. Install the auxiliary hook. Installation of 15-degree and 30-degree angles. In the case of the 0-degree installation angle, stretch out the second section for some distance. Install the auxiliary boom wedge sleeve into the auxiliary boom fixing hole, and then stretch out the second section slowly up to the auxiliary boom rope to bear force. Pull out the fixing pin and insert the pin axis into the 15-degree or 30-degree hole for fixing, and then raise the boom slowly to retract the second section until the auxiliary boom is in the 15-degree or 30-degree working state. Finally, insert the other 2 pins. Removal of auxiliary boom. Remove the auxiliary boom according to the reverse procedure of the installation and fix it at the right side of the main boom. Removal of auxiliary hook. Remove the auxiliary rope and switch off the power supply of the height limit switch of the auxiliary boom. Remove the 2 front pin axes and rotate the auxiliary boom. Insert the connecting pin axis of the auxiliary boom with the main boom. Remove the other 2 pin axes at the front end of the auxiliary boom. Retract the extended frame. Note: when rotating the auxiliary boom, hold it with the auxiliary lifting rope or the similar tool to rotate it slowly so as to avoid any danger due to violent rotation resulting from gravity. Conversion of ratio of steel wire rope. Hold the outriggers in place. Retract the main boom before placing it at the rear side of the complete vehicle and put the hook onto the ground. Remove the rope device on the boom head. Remove the rope clams and the cotter pins on the wedge. Remove the cotter pins on the pin axis and remove the pin axis. Remove the rope wedge sleeve. Converse the rope ratio based on the working conditions. Install the rope wedge sleeve and the rope clamps. fix the rope wedge sleeve to the hook when the ratio is odd, and fix the rope wedge sleeve to the boom head when the ratio is even. Introduction of safety control devices. Take time to carefully study the instruction manual of the torque limiter before hoisting operation and fully understand the working conditions and ratio adjustment and other functions. Setting of working conditions. Prior to operation of the crane, follow the query conditions to find out the corresponding condition code and adjust the working conditions to the actual conditions. Press the Setting button for working conditions in the main interface to enter the working conditions setting interface. Operate the numeric and functional keys to enable the working conditions value in the display to be consistent with the actual operating conditions. Press the Enter key to establish this operation and return to the normal interface. If you don't want to reset the working conditions in this interface, press the Back key to directly return to the previous interface for other settings. Ratio setting. Do not operate the crane before adjusting the ratio setting. Make sure that the displayed ratio is the same as the actual one. Press the Ratio Setting button in the main interface to enter the Ratio Setting interface. Operate the numeric and functional keys to enable the ratio value in the display to be consistent with the actual operating ratio. Press the Enter key to establish this operation and return to the normal interface. If you don't want to reset the ratio in this interface, press the Back key directly to return to the previous interface for other settings. Setting the angle upper limit. Under field conditions, adjust the upward luffing of the boom up to the position of the maximum safe angle. Press the Function Setting key in the main interface to enter the function interface. When pressing the Angle Upper Limit key in this interface, the torque limiter will regard the current angle state as the upper limit angle. When the angle exceeds this limit, the indicator lamp will illuminate and signal an audible alarm to alert the operator to pay attention to the operation of the crane. Setting of angle lower limit. Under field conditions, adjust the downward luffing of the boom up to the position of the minimum safe angle. Press the Function Setting key in the main interface to enter the function interface. When pressing the Angle Lower Limit key in this interface, the torque limiter will regard the current angle state as the lower limit angle. When the angle is below this limit, the indicator lamp will illuminate and signal an audible alarm to alert the operator to pay attention to the operation of the crane. Cancellation of angle restriction. In the upper and lower limit setting interfaces, press the number button 4 to cancel all angle limit setting points. Safety function of torque limiter. When the hoisting torque is overloaded, the torque limiter will cut off torque increasing conditions such as extending, downward luffing, hoisting, and only move toward the direction of torque decreasing conditions such as hook falling, retracting, and upward luffing. Note: when the torque limiter cannot work properly, press and hold the overload release switch on the left controller to retract the cart to the driving state. When the torque limiter is working properly, don't press and hold this switch for forced overload operation. Otherwise, the crane can overturn or the boom can break. Height limiter function. This height limiter consists of the main and auxiliary boom position limiting switches and heavy hammers. When the hook holding up the hammer of the height limit switch, it will stop automatically and alarm will sound and the overwinding alarm indicator lamp will illuminate. 3-winding protector. When the main and auxiliary hooks dropping up to the remaining 3 to 5 windings of the winch rope, they will automatically stop and alarm will sound. When it is required to replace the rope or repair the winch device, press the over-releasing release switch on the left controller to allow the hooks to continue to decline. Note: when the 3-winding protector fails, ensure the winch rope has 3 to 5 windings remaining. Otherwise, the rope can fall off, causing accidents. Hydraulic oil filter blocking alarm. When the back filter on the hydraulic oil tank is blocked, the alarm will go off. Replace the oil filter cartridge immediately. Note: when the ambient temperature is relatively low, the hydraulic oil viscosity will increase. When engaging the power takeoff, this can also cause an obstruction alarm. To overcome such blocking, run the machine for some time to warm up the hydraulic oil and remove the obstruction alarm before performing the crane operations. Part 2. Maintenance. Pre-check before traveling. To ensure the crane's safe travel, check the following. Check the engine lubricating oil. Start the engine and let it run for 15 minutes or so, and then shut it off for checking. Check the cooling fluid level. Open the water filter at the side of the expansion tank and make sure that the fluid level is up to the lower edge of the water filler. If the level is at or below the lower mark, add cooling fluid. Check power steering fluid. Observe the fluid level of the steering oil tank. If the level is at or below the lower mark, add power steering fluid. Check the clutch fluid. Observe the fluid level of the oil reservoir. If the level is at or below the lower mark, add clutch fluid. Check the hydraulic fluid level. Observe the scale line of the oil tank gauge. If the level is at or below the lower mark, add hydraulic fluid. Check the cabin IP control switches and lighting, and make sure that the instruments work properly and reliably. Check the steering mechanism for flexibility and reliability. Make sure that the fastening at the steering rod is secure and reliable. Check the fastening bolts of transmission mechanism for reliability. Check the tire air pressure with a pressure gauge. Pressure 0.77 plus or minus 0.05 MPa. Check the brake mechanism. Depress the brake pedal when the vehicle is driving at a speed of 30 kilometers per hour. Make sure that the braking distance is not more than 10 meters. Park the vehicle on slope of an inclination of about 20% and engage the parking brake lever or disengage the parking brake lever to make the vehicle start moving at a slow speed or to check whether the parking brake is reliable. Check an adjustment of the undercarriage. Check an adjustment of clutch control. Bleed air from the system. Add brake fluid to the oil reservoir to bring the fluid level up to 4/5 of the oil reservoir height or so. Open the rubber lid of the bleed air cap on the clutch slave cylinder and loosen the bleed air cap. Depress the clutch pedal to the end and then tighten the bleed air cap. Then release the clutch pedal. Repeat above steps until no air bubbles show in the blowhole. During the adjusting period, pay attention to the fluid level of oil reservoir and add fluid if it gets low. Adjusting the length of the clutch slave cylinder push rod. Unscrew the locking nuts of the clutch slave cylinder push rod and then rotate the push rod to ensure that there is a gap of 3 to 5 millimeters between the clutch release bearing and the 3-jaw separation disc. Tighten the nuts after adjusting. Adjusting the length of the clutch master cylinder push rod. Unscrew the locking nuts of the push rod of the clutch master cylinder. Adjust the push rod to contact the master cylinder piston, and then turn the push rod 3/4 turn to 1 turn to ensure a gap within 1 to 1.5 millimeters of the push rod. Tighten the nuts after adjusting. Adjustment of gap of bridge brake shoes. Unscrew the locking nut of the adjustment screw. Regulate the adjustment screw up to the tire locking state, and then turn the screw 1 turn or so to ensure that there is a clearance of 0.25 to 0.5 millimeters between the friction shoe and the brake drum surface. Finally, tighten the locking nut of the adjustment screw. Fastening of U-shaped bolts of front and rear suspensions. For a new truck crane, be sure to tighten its U-bolts within 1 month operation. Prop up the complete crane before using a torque wrench to tighten the U-bolts, and make sure that a torque of 500 to 550 Newton.1 meter is applied to the front axle and 750 Newton.1 meter to the rear axle. Perform regular inspection and adjustment. Toe-in adjustment of front axle. Prop up the crane and unscrew the fixing bolts of the first front axle. Adjust the tie rod before using a tape to measure the front and rear distances between the tire center lines on both sides. The difference of the measured front and rear values is the toe-in size. Toe-in adjustment size is 8 to 12 millimeters. Tighten the locking bolts after the toe-in adjustment has met the technical requirements. To ensure the toe-in value is correct, perform regular inspection and adjustment. Otherwise, uneven tire wear of the front axle, steering shaking, or vehicle deviation can occur. Checking and tightening the tire bolts. Check and tighten the tire bolts of a new crane. Use a torque wrench to tighten the tire bolts in a diagonal pattern. Make sure that the tightening torque is 490 to 570 Newton.1 meter. Thereafter, check and tighten the tire bolts periodically. After replacing the tires, retighten the tire bolts after driving the truck 50 kilometers. Rotate the tires every 10,000 kilometers to achieve a maximum tire service life. Check and adjustment of upper cart. Adjustment of throttle system. Bleed air from the throttle system. Add brake fluid into the oil reservoir to bring the fluid level up to 4/5 of the oil reservoir height or so. Open the rubber lid of the bleed air cap on the throttle slave cylinder and loosen the bleed air cap. Step down the throttle pedal to the end and then tighten the bleed air cap, then release the throttle pedal. Repeat above steps until no air bubbles occur in the blowhole. Adjusting the length of the throttle master cylinder push rod. Unscrew the locking nut of the throttle master cylinder and adjust the push rod to contact with the master cylinder piston, and then continue to adjust it to the appropriate position of the accelerator pedal. Tighten the nut after adjusting. Adjusting the length of the throttle slave cylinder push rod. Turn the adjustable nut on the push rod to adjust the length of the throttle slave cylinder push rod to the proper position. Adjusting the fine cable of the telescoping mechanism. Check and adjust the cable once every 2 months. Thereafter, check and adjust the cable once every 3 months to prevent a loose cable from falling off or being squeezed off. Adjust the cable as follows. Adjust the boom elevation up to 60 degrees to enable each section to stretch out fully and then to retract to the end, repeating several times. Stretch out the second section, third section, and fourth section for some distance, and then drop the boom down to remove the fourth section head cover. Adjust the nuts on the fine cable of the fourth section in phase, and adjust the nuts on the fine cables on both sides of the basic boom in phase, respectively, until the second section, third section, and fourth section telescope in phase and no dithering occurs. And then tighten the nuts on the fine cable. When the boom is fully retracted, if there is a gap between the boom at the boom head more than 1 to 2 millimeters, add adjusting shims to the front of the boom head to avoid impact on the cylinder and cable force. Note: when adjusting, if the boom dithers, coat grease onto the contact surface of the sliding blocks between the two booms. Adjusting the sliding blocks and shims of the boom. Lower the boom down and loosen the upper sliding block. Stretch out the boom onto a support so that there is no force on the lower sliding block of the boom. And then increase or decrease shims to adjust the gap between the lower sliding block and the side of the boom up to 2 millimeters. Raise the boom before adjusting the bolts of the upper sliding block on the boom head until the gap between the upper sliding block and the boom is up to 2 millimeters. Note: when adjusting the sliding blocks, you would better adjust the upper and lower sliding blocks at the same time to avoid bending the boom side. Coat grease between the boom and the sliding blocks to prevent the boom from dithering. Adjusting the boom centering device. After using the new truck for a month, adjust the centering device of the boom as follows. Adjust the adjusting bolts of the upper and lower centering device between booms. Adjust each section to its middle position to prevent the boom from twisting, so as to facilitate the installation and removal of the auxiliary boom. Adjust each section in the same way. Checking and tightening the slewing ring bearing fasting bolts. To ensure the safe operation of the truck crane, make sure that the slewing ring bolts are tightened securely. After using the new truck for a month, use a torque wrench to make sure the torque for each tightening bolts reaches 1,127 Newton-1 meter. If looseness of the mounting bolts of the slewing ring bearing occurs, use the torque wrench to re-tighten the bolts in a cross pattern. Thereafter, perform regular inspection monthly. Inspection of main and auxiliary hooks. When one of the following occurs, scrap the hook. No repair of hook defects by welding is permitted, otherwise falling off the load can occur during the hoisting process. There is a crack or break on the hook surface. Value of hook opening degree. See the main and auxiliary hook nameplate exceeds 10% of the designated dimension. Wear and tear of dangerous section reaches 10% of the original size. Wear of cross-section of the rope contact point exceeds 5% of the original dimension. Hook torsional deflection exceeds 10 degrees. Inspection of main and auxiliary winch ropes. If the rope diameter is seriously worn, scrap it. If the broken wires of the rope have no impact on the capacity of the complete vehicle rope, cut broken wires, otherwise scrap it. If the rope is twisted and deformed, scrap it. Otherwise, serious safety accidents can occur. If the rope is seriously rusted, scrap it. Make sure that the rope wedge sleeve and the wedge position are correct. Check the wedge sleeve, pin axis, and wedge for wear or cracks. If any, replace it immediately. Otherwise, danger of the load falling during the hoisting process can occur. Inspection of safety device. Check whether the fully automatic torque limiter acts properly and whether the accuracy is within plus or minus 5% of the error. Check whether the height limiter acts properly, whether the heavy hammer sling is damaged, and whether the unloading solenoid valve acts properly. Check if the 3-winding protector works properly. If any one of the above devices fails inspection, adjust and repair it. Hydraulic oil. When a new truck crane has been delivered and used for 3 months, replace its hydraulic oil to avoid long existence of abrasion impurities in various parts during the early use period. Capacity is about 660 liters of hydraulic oil. Under normal operating conditions, filter or replace the hydraulic oil once every 6 months. The service time of the hydraulic oil is not permitted to exceed 2 years. Whenever the hydraulic oil is severely polluted, filter or replace it. Check the amount of hydraulic oil in the driving state of the crane. Add the oil immediately when the oil level is below the lower mark. Select the appropriate hydraulic oil according to the ambient temperature. 5 degrees Celsius above, anti-wear hydraulic oil LHM46. Minus 15 degrees Celsius to 5 degrees Celsius, anti-wear hydraulic oil LHM32. Minus 30 degrees Celsius to minus 15 degrees Celsius, low temperature hydraulic oil LHV22. Minus 30 degrees Celsius below, aviation hydraulic oil number 10. Filtration and replacement of hydraulic oil and cleaning of hydraulic oil tank. Remove the upper cover and open the tank cap. Use a hydraulic oil filter to suck the hydraulic oil from the tank into an oil drum. Unplug the drain plug of the oil tank to drain the residual oil. Then install the drain plug and pour kerosene or gasoline into the oil tank and use spare pieces of cloth for cleaning. Unplug the drain plug of the oil tank again to drain the used kerosene or gasoline. After that, reinstall the drain plug. Use the hydraulic oil filter to suck the hydraulic oil from the drum back into the tank or replace it with new oil. Observe the oil mark. If the oil is insufficient, add some oil. Replacement of oil absorption cartridge and oil return cartridge. Replace the oil absorption cartridge and oil return cartridge after 3 months in service. Thereafter, replace it once every 12 months. Replacement of oil return cartridge. Extract the hydraulic oil out of the tank fully. Remove the oil filter top cover. Replace the filter cartridge and install the top cover. Replacement of oil absorption cartridge. Remove the oil filter top cover. Replace the filter cartridge and install the top cover. Note: not following the above regulations for replacing or filtering the hydraulic oil and filter cartridge can cause failure of the hydraulic system or reduction of the hydraulic component life. Gear oil. Change the gear oil after 3 months in service. Thereafter, replace it once every 12 months. If the gear oil is severely polluted, change it immediately. Always check the oil level. When the oil level is below the specified value, add gear oil immediately. The gear lubricating oil, LCLD GL4 85W90, is used for the gearbox and drive axle. Change it as follows. Run the drive transmission for 10 to 15 minutes. Changing the gearbox lubricating oil. Unplug the drain plug of the gearbox to drain the lubricating oil. Replace the drain plug and open the gearbox upper oil filler and the side inspection port for filling until the oil comes out from the gearbox side inspection port. The gearbox volume is about 13 liters. Change the lubricating oil of the gearbox power takeoff at the same time in the same method as that of the gearbox. Changing the middle and rear drive axles lubricating oil. Change the lubricating oil. Remove the drain plug below the drive axle housing to drain the lubricating oil and then replace the drain plug. Remove the filler in the middle of the drive axle housing and fill the oil to the lower level of the filler. The drive axle housing volume is about 12 liters. Changing the hub redactor's lubricating oil. Remove the drain plug at the end of the hub redactor and rotate the hub redactor to discharge the oil. Then continue to rotate the hub redactor to allow the arrow on the end to point downward vertically. Fill the oil from the filler up to the lower edge of the filler. Each hub reducer has a volume of about 3.5 liters. The gear lubricating oil, LCKD220, is used for the hoisting mechanism and the slewing mechanism. Change it as follows. Run the slewing mechanism and the hoisting mechanism for 10 to 15 minutes. Changing the lubricating oil. Remove the oil drain screw to discharge the oil and then replace the oil drain screw. Open the filler and fill until the oil comes out from the filler. The slewing mechanism volume is about 4.5 liters. Changing the lubricating oil. Remove the oil drain screw to discharge the oil and replace the oil drain screw. Open the filler and fill until the oil level is up to the lower edge of the inspection port. The hoisting mechanism volume is about 2.5 liters. Note: not following the above regulations for replacing the lubricating oil can cause failure of any mechanism or reduction of the service life. Inspection and replacement of brake fluid. Change the brake fluid once every 12 months. Meanwhile, check the oil level monthly and add brake fluid when needed. Grease. Fill grease into various parts of the crane regularly. Clean the lubrication nipple and the part to be lubricated before filling grease. Part of hoisting operation. Weekly maintenance of lubricating points. Main boom sliding block. Gears of slewing mechanism and slewing ring bearing. Sheaves and sheave shafts. Monthly maintenance of lubricating points. Hook. All ropes. each hinge point and pin axis of the rotating platform. Winch bearing seat. Undercarriage. Weekly maintenance of lubricating points. Each pin axis. Push rod. Drive shaft. Drive axle and other. Note: not following the above regulations for filling grease can cause failure of any working component or damage from lack of oil. Engine maintenance. Follow the instructions to maintain the engine. For details, consult your local engine service station. Note: don't mix different brands of hydraulic oil, gear oil, and grease. Otherwise, damage to any mechanism or system can occur. Part 3. Adjustment of pressure of various parts of crane. Factory adjusted pressure of various parts in the hydraulic system has been completed in accordance with the required standards. After maintenance of any fault, readjust the pressure of various parts in accordance with the required standards. P1 pressure setting. The P1 pump supplies the hydraulic oil to the luffing telescoping mechanisms. It also supplies hydraulic oil to the main and auxiliary winch mechanisms together with the P2 pump. Adjustment. Manipulate the control lever for hoisting the luffing to the top to adjust the pressure of the relief valve up to 21 MPa. P2 pump pressure setting. The P2 pump supplies the hydraulic oil to the main and auxiliary winch mechanisms. Adjustment. Plug the oil tube leading to the winch arrestor and then manipulate the control lever for hoisting winch to adjust the pressure of the relief valve up to 21 MPa. P3 pump pressure setting. The P3 pump supplies the hydraulic oil to the outrigger system and the slewing system. Adjustment. Pull the control lever of each outrigger selector valve to its neutral position. Manipulate the handle of the outrigger lifting cylinder to adjust the pressure of the relief valve up to 20 MPa. Horizontal outrigger pressure setting, 5 MPa. Adjustment. Pull the control lever of each outrigger selector valve up to its horizontal position. Manipulate the handle of the outrigger lifting cylinder downward to adjust the pressure of the relief valve up to 5 MPa. Slewing pressure setting, 18 MPa. Adjustment. Restore the slewing brake release rocker switch on the left controller. Manipulate the slewing handle to adjust the pressure of the relief valve on the slewing buffer valve up to 18 MPa. Note: strict adjustment in accordance with the above pressures is permitted. The pressures beyond the above ones can cause damage to the hydraulic components or reduce the service life or even cause accidents.